Welcome to UNCAGED, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today we have Derek Lundsten on the show with us. Hi, Derek.
Hey, Ben. Pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
It's great to have you. Derek is the president and CEO at LifeGuides. LifeGuides is a transformative platform for conscious leaders and value-driven cultures. I'll let him explain much more about LifeGuides shortly. I guess also I should say that LifeGuides is LifeGuides PBC, and we can also talk about what PBC stands for and how that's really part of a trend in business as well. But before we get into LifeGuides, let's talk a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ben. So I'm at this point, I guess the term is they call it a serial entrepreneur. So I've started a few different businesses in the health and education and technology intersection. Over the last decade, I've built a business called Scrimmage, which was exited last year to a firm out of Toronto named Acto Technologies. So supporting them on that transition. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And about 4 years ago, I had been an angel investor, an early investor in LifeGuides, where I'm now the CEO. And so I've been able to observe and support the founding team. And now I've been able to jump in and actually operate and commercialize the company. But I've had a fun journey working with different entrepreneurs, working with different companies, have a great background in the healthcare vertical and healthcare space. And I really see that as an exciting place to be over the next decade as we've moved to telehealth and just other opportunities for how we're doing healthcare. So it's going to be an exciting decade. And yeah, on a personal level, Ben, live in Phoenix, Arizona. Moved out here last year for the LifeGuides opportunity. I have 2 young children and my wife of 5 years. And so it's been quite a ride, to say the least.
That's great. I love Phoenix. I love Arizona. And as you and I have spoken about in the past, it's like a Chicago Cubs fan second home, basically.
With better weather.
With much better weather. So let's dig in a little bit more on LifeGuides.
Sure.
It seems to be a very innovative model in the kind of career coaching space, but I'll let you dig in on it.
Yeah, it's actually career coaching, but also emotional and mental health and well-being. It kind of falls in that combination. So you mentioned it's a platform for transformative cultures and leaders. Really, what we saw a few years ago was that our responsibility as leaders to take care of our people, take care of our communities, and invest in them is increasing. And the expectations from new generations entering the workforce are higher. The standards by which we're measured as leaders are higher. And there's new opportunities and new products that exist to do that. And so that was the persona, the profile that we saw around leadership and the fact that companies are embracing that philosophy. And then the product itself was about tapping into another trend, which was how do we use technology to reconnect people? And specifically, the idea is that everyone goes through life. We experience challenges. We have opportunities for growth. But the idea is that for someone who's on that path, someone else has already walked and experienced those lessons ahead of us. And we can use the technology to match them so they can receive peer-to-peer support from trained guides, if you will, on how to work through the challenge or navigate the opportunity more successfully, better resourced, with greater health and vitality, and ultimately enrich their lives and their organizations that they work for. And so we brought that combination of business as a force for good, conscious leadership, technology disruption, and personal development, and we merged them all together. And that was the thesis before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And then what happened over the last year is that that's brought everything to the forefront all at the same time. So the entire world is now aware of, hey, we have emotional needs, we have psychological needs, we have new challenges around remote work, remote schooling, stressors that we've never anticipated. How do we handle this? And so it's been a window that has brought awareness in the collective consciousness of the world on how do we do business differently, how do we do coaching and peer mentorship differently. So
that's really interesting. And it's also something I would say that I feel continues to evolve.
Yes.
You know, I think about kind of my own journey over the last year. This week was really the first week for the pandemic to become a reality for me last year.
Yeah.
It was this week. And I remember it so clearly that, the first reaction was that, we as a company kind of went into what I would call it was war mode.
Yeah.
We kind of buttoned down, but you can only survive and thrive in a war mode structure for so long because
Yeah.
of what you're talking about. There's an anxiety in and of itself with that type of a structure. So how are you guys handling that evolution of companies through this?
Yeah. So two parts. So on a personal level, I think our LifeGuides and every company went into that same mode, right? We had the same experience. We saw it, kind of similar. This is something coming and changing. So we had a little bit of that vision, but then once it was clear that this was the new reality, everyone went into, okay, what's the short-term plan? What are we planning for from a financial structure standpoint? How do we survive? How do we make sure our business and our team and our stakeholders are considered in that plan? And we plan for both a short-term and a longer-term, quote unquote, winter that no one knew how long that was going to go for, right? So we all kind of went into that. And then we took a step back because the whole market, the whole world paused, for lack of a better term, right? If you remember that, like it went into 3 months of basically everyone, we were in lockdown and everyone was kind of like, what is going on, right? And so that gave us a chance to sit down and say, okay, how do we respond intentionally to the market with positioning on our product that meets the demands and needs of how this is evolving, right? So recognizing that everyone's in almost paralysis with what do we do next? How do we create a response? And we actually did exactly that. We built channels and content and guides in our community that could address some of the challenges that were cropping up around working from home, managing stress, and just dealing with time management, for example, around that piece, as well as thinking about their immunity and just general community management. And then that led into all other topics around homeschooling, care management, stress management, and that's just continued to grow over time. And then, what happened is around the end of the summer, as things started to, quote unquote, resurface and people said, this is going to be our reality for at least the next 12 months. We saw companies start to open back up, and LifeGuides was there ready to step in and support those organizations. That was just the challenges of the pandemic response, but all the other traditional challenges that are already there that exist with, taking care of family members and educating our children and managing our businesses, that still happened regardless. And so we have now built up a whole community of, hundreds of topics that we can support organizations and members of those organizations in.
I love it. I love it. I think the idea of having a guide sounds like a wonderful thing that we all need in life. How is this playing into some of these trends? I feel like millennials, Gen Y are more open to this. Is that fair to say?
I think we very much so. Yeah. And I think we look at it in the sense that we fill a gap in this sense for that exact reason, right? So if you look at traditional offerings that existed around like EAP, for example, I think probably it started out with noble intentions, but it's become more of a risk mitigation tool than anything, right? Then you look at where, to your point about millennials and Gen Z, they are using Talkspace. They are using other mental health digital therapy apps. They are open to seeking support and counsel. And so we're seeing, over the last decade, growth in that space, right? But they're also quite expensive and it's not accessible for everybody, especially for that population where they're still early in their career and they don't have necessarily the finances that are investing in that. And so we come in and fill this gap where we say, hey, organizations can provide an outlet and a model that addresses not the crises, but the day-to-day stressors, the day-to-day emotional needs and coaching needs of this population, but also it goes beyond, it connects the generation because the people that have learned these lessons are now having a vested interest in coaching that next generation. And it's showing the commonality that exists, right? The technology.
Well, I love that idea of the generational bonding. I find that one of the troubling things that I do sometimes see, especially in the US, is the lack of connection of the generations. And that's I think that's a real miss. I don't know how things have evolved that way, but it's sometimes shocking to see each generation somehow having to learn everything all over again. And my own entrepreneurial story, I remember when I was 16 years old, and I'm one of those annoying kids who set up companies when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And my best friend and I set up a company, and we had no idea what we were doing. I joke because the first thing we did, the most important thing in our minds that we had to do was to get business cards. That was
Yeah. You're playing business, as they say, right?
Yeah. But the reason why I mention it is we actually went down to finally spoke to, I think it was the SBA, the Small Business Administration had these mentors that you could go see. I don't even know if it exists anymore, but I remember finally we went down there, we said, we want to create an ad agency. And we sat down with these guys, they must have been in their, late 60s. And that experience really gave me my first foundation in business. It was so valuable, such great learning. And I think that that's true about what you're talking about, which is all these stresses that we face in life. We need that advice.
Yeah. So you just described exactly the model, Ben. That's exactly what we're doing at scale, right? And the idea is that we can create personalized support for whatever the topic is, whether it's caring for aging parents or becoming a new parent, or dealing with a family member or a friend who has a chronic illness and being a care management for them, or whatever it may be. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of unique quote unquote life challenges or opportunities, right? It's the puzzle of life, as you will. And so using the technology to connect people for accelerating that empathy, for sharing that wisdom, for creating a healthier community and a workforce, that's really the opportunity here.
That's great. So Derek, this has been a crazy year.
Yes.
How do you find joy in your work right now? How have you guys made it through? What makes you happiest right now?
So 2 parts. That's the irony of this whole situation, right? So prior to the pandemic, I was putting 100,000 miles a year traveling, right? And I've got 2 young kids. So I've had the blessing, frankly, of being able to be home every day for the last year with my wife and kids, and actually spend time and see them growing up, and be there in the mornings, be there for lunches, be there for dinner, and get to spend that time. And still, because everyone is now on Zoom, still able to actually do a lot of work and make a lot of things happen at a high level while still being present every day with the family. And so in many ways, this has been a blessing for my family in that way, and it's given me a ton of joy. And the fact that our business is in a place where we can provide service and support other families and other companies that are needing it. We're living our work, if you will. So in many ways, we've been fortunate to be positioned at a place where we can help a lot of people, and personally, it's been good for my relationships, except for the fact that we miss our families back east. That's been not seeing the grandparents has been one of the challenging parts, especially for the kids and for my folks and my in-laws. But other on that part of our immediate family, it's been really nice. So.
Well, I think, Derek, they'll forgive you when travel becomes easier and they come to spend more time with you in Arizona, and they now have a nice warm place that they can go and play some golf.
Exactly.
So tell me how you see this space that you're playing in and the LifeGuides plays in. Tell me how you see it evolving in the short term and the midterm. I just see this industry of guide really expanding, and it sounds like now that companies like yours are coming up with scalable models, there's just a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly how we see the medium term, right? So we're going to have thousands of quote unquote trained guides, credentialed guides on our platform over the next 12 months. We're expanding our team significantly, expanding our client base significantly. And so the interactions that will take place between guides and members and the additional companies that we continue to bring on, and they're from all over the segments. We have technology companies and retailers, financial services, healthcare. It's really transcending the vertical because it's a human need that we're solving. But ultimately, we're going to just bring on more and more organizations, more and more people who are going to have that experience. We're measuring the experience of that interaction and how that applies to different wellness metrics and business metrics that companies want to see. And so that will help to accelerate our expansion. In the medium and longer term, we see this becoming a worldwide phenomenon. We have already our first international client. We expect to have international guides. We'll be hiring in these markets. We'll be expanding internationally, and we have investors that support that plan. And that will become the growth story over the next few years. But ultimately, we see kind of 2 parts. We're going to have our goal in 15 years is to have trained 1 million guides worldwide.
Wow.
So that's the big vision. The 1 million life guides, and that we're supporting, or have impacted in some way indirectly 1 billion lives in that same time frame. And so
well,
the goal
at
is
some
that,
point,
yeah,
Derek, I definitely going to have you come back and talk about how you scale up training to that level. That is impressive. That is impressive.
yeah.
Well, listen, Derek, it's been awesome to have you on Uncaged today. It's been great to learn more about LifeGuides. Uncaged is a show that provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Derek, if people want to learn more about LifeGuides, where should they go?
Yeah, our website is lifeguides.com. We're all over social media as well, and you can reach out to us through any of those channels. We'd love to speak with any organization, any member as well.
Great. We've been talking to Derek Lundsten. He's the president and CEO of LifeGuides, and he's really transforming kind of the business of guiding people through the problems and the joys of life. So thanks so much.
Brent.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Derek. Thank you for being on the show.